Hello and Assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm Dr. Afzal Badsha, and in this tutorial we are going to cover the introduction to the object-oriented programming. We will cover everything in very detail. In the last lecture we just covered the introduction to the object-oriented programming. What do the object means, and why do we need to go towards the object-oriented programming instead of focusing on the procedural programming. Today we will cover the objects and classes, but before jumping towards the object and classes, to differentiate the object and classes and to code the program, I think we should recap what we have covered and what were these things. So for example, you are working for the university, and university ask you to code any program for them, for the university, that the university will manage all these things. For example, the system will get the student registration. The application will be responsible to assign some assignments to them. The students will be able to check their results. The teachers will be able to attend, to mark the attendance, give assignment to the students. And similarly, there will be number of functionalities in that program. And what you do, you just note down all these things, that what that software will do. And after noting it down, you can see that you get just like a massive thing. So it is not clear what you have to do and from where you have to start. So this is very massive, this is very complex, it is not organized very well. So you don't know what to do with that, and exactly if there is any bug in that, and if you want to maintain that, so it will be extremely difficult to work with that. So what we can do, we can reorganize all the requirements to some categories. For example, if after categorizing, we can see that some of the requirements were related to the teachers, some of the requirements were related to the students, some of the requirements were related to the admin, and similarly some of the requirements were related to the courses. So after categorizing all the requirement to different modules, to different objects, to different classes, this look very easy. It looks that we can handle that, and we can easily code that. For example, we can assign one team to code the teacher, we can assign one team to code the student, we can assign one team to code the admin, and so on. And in the same way, if there is any issue, if there's any bug, then we can easily address it, because we exactly know if the bug is coming related to the teacher, then we will debug the teacher. If it is related to the student, for example, the registration file is not working, then we will go towards the registration. So it is very easy to manage if we put the things according to these categories. So actually, object oriented programming help us to put the things into object. As in the object oriented programming, the O means for the object. We will focus on the object oriented, means that we will completely focus on the object. So object oriented programming means that this is the programming in which we will be focused, we will be centered to the object rather than to the functions, as we noticed earlier in the word cloud. So objects, anything around you, all these things are objects. The chair in which you are sitting, the teacher, the students, the birds, the screen in front of you, the mobile phone, the laptop, anything which you can see around you, all these things are object. But the question is, in any program, you just take all those objects which you need, which have some responsibility in your software. And in your university program, when you code any program for the university, so the related object are that the teachers have some responsibility in that software, the student have some responsibility in that software, the admin have some responsibility, courses do have some responsibility, the classrooms, the lab, etc., etc. So all these things will become the object. Some categorization, some classes, some templates, some design for your program. But along with that, doctor is also any object. But doctor is not becoming a part of the university, because in the university the doctor don't have any role. So these are the objects which we have selected for our program to be coded for the university. Let's go a bit further. Than we discussed that why do we go towards the object oriented programming. The first thing is modularization. It converts the program into modules, and due to modules, it is easy to reuse, and as the programming is in a module, we can easily reuse them. Then definitely it will be easy to maintain. Due to modularization, we can easily address that, and similarly all these things make that program very flexible. Then we define the classes, as you can see over here that let's first go toward that example. Here you can see that when we want to build any house, then before directly going towards starting the constructions, first we work on its design. We create its blueprint, and according to blueprint, then the house is constructed and the house is built. Actually, the blueprint, the design which we have on the paper, this is design, this is a blueprint, this is, you can say, rules regulation. These are the principles for the designer to guide how this house should be built. And similarly, as the house looks on that blueprint or on the design, for example, the design has two rooms, it has one drawing room, it has one porch, it has two kitchen, etc., etc. Then when your house is built, when it is completed, it will have exactly the same things as designed, or it was decided in the design. For example, it exactly has the two room, one drawing room, etc., etc. So this is the exact copy as you design for that. For example, any government is going to construct houses for the people, or they are going to construct schools, or the hospital. So directly starting the construction, they first need this design. So exactly in the same way, in the object oriented programming, before jumping to the objects, we first need for design, we need a design for that. And this is the class which is actually design, and which guide us how this program, how these objects will be created. You can understand it here in a very easy way. For example, this is a class, this is actually a design, and in the design you can see that we have a class name, we have some its attributes. For example, these are the attributes, these are the some functions. So this is a design, this is a template, this is not a class, this is a virtual thing only. This is only a principles or rules regulations which are applied when the object is created. And here you can see that the object is created, and object has the same things which were designed here. You can see that this is the real world object, because it's a real world Sarah, and the Sarah detail. There is the next student Ali, and this is the exact Ali detail, and this is the student number, next student number 3 Ahmad, and we have exactly the same detail for that. So I think you exactly now know that what is class. And when we define class, we need particularly two things: we need attributes and we need its function. So now I think we can go further to code, and to exactly look in the detail that how actually classes and objects are made. So at that time, after that slide, we know that what is actually object. And if we are working for any university program, and for the university we have decided that these are actually some of the real world entity which is affecting our program, which have some responsibility in our program, and they will place some role in that particular application. For example, in the university application, The teacher has responsibility related to the teaching, giving assignment to the teachers, taking assignment from the teachers, making attending, marking the students attendance. Similarly, the student also has some responsibility. Student submit their assignment, they check their result, etc. They also submit application, etc. And the people of the admin, they also have some responsibility because they work or address the student queries. They also address the teacher's query, they update the result, etc., etc. So everyone has some sort of responsibility in the university application. So all these items, all these objects, all these real world entities which have some functionality in the university application, all of that will become our classes. So directly coding, going towards the object, we will need a class for that. As we discussed earlier, that before going to construct a house, what we do, we will need a design for that. Exactly here, as you can see, that if you have decided that we have one teacher class in our program, we have one student object or entity in our class, we have an admin, one entity in our class, then instead of coding them, we will first need a design for that. Design will show that what this uh, entity will exactly have, what this object will exactly have. So for that, what we do, we define our classes. So classes is actually a design for any object. As you uh, saw the house, before constructing the house, we need a design for that. So for any particular object, we need a class for that. That is the class which actually has a rules, regulations, which has actually the data members, which have the functions, that how this class will perform, how this class will act. And if you have created one class, for example, with a person or a teacher, and you have decided that we will need a name for that, we will need an age for that, we will need a gender for that, and we will need occupation for that. So all the objects coming to that class, all of them will have all these data members. And similarly, if you have defined these function, then every program will have these function for that particular program. Okay, so this is the design which we are designing. Objects is any particular entity. I think we can understand it better. For example, you have designed a table. This is an Excel sheet which you have designed to get a student data, and these are the attributes. For example, this is the attributes which shows the name, this is the attribute which shows the roll number, this is the attribute which shows the semester, this shows the department, and etc., etc. So this is actually a simple Excel sheet which you have prepared to get student data, but currently it is empty. This is a class. After getting a real world data, you will see that data is coming exactly in the same format. For example, you enter the early data, early roll number, early semester, and early department. So this is currently one instant, and that one instant is called an object. In the way, in your class, you are an object of that class. Your friend, a student of that class, is also an object of that class, exactly as we discussed it here, that how the design is created and how we apply it in our real life. So every class will have some important things. For example, every class will have a name. In the current university program which we are discussing, then the class's name can be student, teacher, admin, because we have decided that these are the entities which are playing some role in that program, and we have declared them as our objects and classes. So every class will have a name. They will have the attributes. Attributes are actually the characteristics which will individually define that class. For example, we will identify that student or a person by their name, age, gender, and occupation, etc. And the second important thing for the class is a function. Functions mean that what role that object can perform in the system. For example, if we have decided to uh, create a student object or create a student class, then what are the student responsibility in that program? For example, student will be able to check its result, they will be able to submit their assignments, they will be able to get or submit some requests. So all these are the functionalities. I think this is very good example or a better example from where you can understand it easily. I'm dividing that in a two part. Here you can see that we are creating designing one class. This is a class name which is a student, and for that name, that class, I have designed some attributes. For example, I will need the student name, I will need the roll number, and I will also need the grade. And in the same way, we have some functionality for that program too. For example, attend class, submit assignment, etc. So this is a class, this is a design, this is a blueprint, this is a template, this is the rules regulation, these are the principle for these objects, to define these objects. So after creating the object, for example, this is the first object, then the first object is getting the same data members which we have defined over here. In exactly in the student number 2, which is Ali, the Ali is getting the same data which we have defined over here according to the design. And in the same way, you can see in the third student, Ahmed is getting the same data, same variable, same information which have designed over here. So if you compare it with the house being constructed and the design which is created for that, then the class is exactly a design and the objects are exactly the house which is constructed. So let's go a bit further. For example, now instead of working on all the objects, all the classes, we have decided that we will have one student. And for that student, because this is the university and student have to interact with the application, they will have some related activities on the application. So we agreed that we need one student class. After agreeing that we are going to include the student, then we decide that what are the important attributes or data members which we will need it for that. For the students, we will need a name, we will need a roll number, and we will need a semester. And in the same way, we also decide that why we are going to include the student as a class in that program. We have decided that we will include that because the student have some functionality. We will not include it if it have no activities in that program. We are not going to include doctors in that. We are not to include any other profession in that, because they don't have any function in the university. We have students in the university, so definitely students becoming a part of that. After deciding the student and after creating the design for that, what we do, we code that, and this is the code format. That this is the keyword, this is the class name which is designed, which is decided to purpose the student, these are the data members, and these are the function. So we write the data members as that and we write the function like that. So once we create the class, our next task is to assign the object. We have uh, created a student, this is a class, we have also decided on its object, we have also decided on its function, and after then storing the individual data against that class, these are the objects. For example, this is student number 1, this is student number 2, and this is student number 3. All these are following the same direction, same rules and regulations. They are following the same design as we have agreed over here. None of these students can have a department or any other, for example, Gmail, etc., because we have already agreed that we will have a name, we will have a roll number, and we will have a semester. So exactly, this is a class which we have designed, on which we already agreed that what our class will have, and this is the real world entities. These are the real world objects for which we have entered some of the data. So this is the code, this is the class code, and here we are creating the objects for that. This is the code syntax, and I think we should go further now to write the detailed code. How can we write the classes and how can we write the objects? So let's go to code that program we on which we have just discussed over here, and things on which we agreed. And what I should do, I will include the header, I will also need a namespace. Okay, after that what I should do, I should go towards coding the class, and this is a class program, so I'm storing that with class objects. I haven't yet included the main function, so let me define the main function. And in the main function, currently I have nothing to do. I'm just defining the main function. So now we can go towards our task. Our first task is to create one class, to design one class, and we have agreed on that we will write a class for student. So the syntax is we use the keyword class. Class is a keyword, and after the class keyword we will use the class name. In the current program we have decided the student will work as a class, so student is our class name. So this is the template of the class, and I have created that class. Its body start from that bracket to that. This is the body of the class, and in that body, as we decided earlier in our program, that in our class we will have some important things, as we decided here that actually every program have two things: the attributes and functions. So let's go towards the attribute, that how we can write these attributes in our program. So this is a class, and in the body of the class I'm using one access specifier. We will discuss it later on what the public do, but this is an access specifier, and in that access specifier I define some data member. So my first data member is, for example, name. My second data member is roll number, and my third data member is semester. So I assume that you already know about the string, uh, that what actually these return type means, what these so hopefully you know about what are these data types. You have already studied that in the programming fundamental, that what are the string, what are the integer, what are the floats, and how it works. So currently wasting time on these data types, we should go further. So in that student class, as per the design, as per the decision which we have made, I have declared three data member. So along with that three data members, I will also need any function too. So what I'm going to do, I will write also any function over here, and currently I have a simple function over here to show the data, and later on we will discuss that how can we can add any other things in that. So this is the simple function. If you see the class in detail, then this start from here to here, and in that class we have some data members, and similarly in that class we have one function. Can I increase its size? So why I'm wasting time on that? I should increase it here from the mouse. So this is a class, and in that class we have some data members, and we also have one function over here. This class, this design, this class is not going to have any space in the memory. This is a virtual thing. This is only a design. This is only a blueprint. It don't has any space in the memory, so it is just only rules and regulations for the object. So what we can do next is that we should go towards the main to create its objects. The compiler needs only the main function. The compiler don't check outside the main function. So once you create an object there, or if you have created any function outside of the main function, you need to call that from the main. So what I'm going to do, I'm writing the word student. So now the student is understood by the compiler because we have created the student over here as a class. So here when you write a student, the compiler doesn't understand it that this is a class which we have already written over here. And s1 means that we have created one object for the student. So s1 is the object for the student. Our next task is that we want to enter some data to the name, roll number and semester. So s1 is the object, and s1 will have its name, it will have a roll number, and it will also have a semester. So our next task is for s1 student provide the name. So this is the exact syntax to provide the name to that. For example, its name is ABC, and for that s1 we are also providing the roll number, and the roll number is, for example, the roll number is BSSE001. And in the same way for s1 I will also provide a semester, and semester is also a string, so I will also write that in a code format, and the semester is, for example, second. So this is the way I have provided the data to the s1. So s1 is created. I think I should take you back to that slide. So here you can see that we have created one student object. This was the student class, and for that student class we created one object, and to that object we have assigned some value. For example, here we have assigned the name, the roll number and semester, etc. Exactly in the coding we created one object, and to that object I provided its name, its roll number and its semester. So let's check either it is working or not. Only that, to check either if there is any error on that semester. I think semester spellings are incorrect. Let me correct it. So yes, it's working. There is no error in that. So our next task is we want to show all the data members which we have created over here. This is the same functions which you have already studied in the programming fundamentals. So how we can display the value? For example, we use the cout, and in the cout I will just display a message name, and I will display a name over here, and handle to go towards the new line. In the same way, I will see out the roll number of the student, roll number. I will refer the same variable which we have already agreed or which we have already written, and similarly I will also display the semester data in which currently the student is studying, and the semester variable is SEMEST semester, and now it should work and it should display the data. Currently we have only created the objects. As we create the object, and after that we have set all the data members values. For example, we set the name, we set the roll number, and we also set the semester. The third thing is, if you run that program, it will display nothing. For example, I'm going to run that, and you can see that it is displaying nothing. So it is just displaying nothing because we don't have any cout function over here, and we are currently not calling the show function. So show function is not going to automatically work here. We will call it over here. So the things which we are calling over here will work, and all the other things if we have described or if we have written, they will not work. So for as1 I will also call the show function, and after that it should work because we have also called the show function. So let's run it, and after running that you can see that it is properly working. You can see that the name is displayed, its roll number is displayed, and similarly its semester is also displayed over here. So how actually it worked? You can see over here that first we created the student object. For example, there are hundreds of students in that class. We have classes, we have created only one object of that class. We have created the first instant of that class. In the case of, as we discussed earlier, as a Excel sheet, then we have entered only the one student data. So the object is going to get a storage, to get a memory space. Class is not going to get a memory space because class is a design. It is just a piece of codes, a virtual piece of codes, just only rules, regulations, and principles to design an object. So the class is not going to get any space in the memory. But when the object is created, after that it get a storage, it get a space on the memory. So once we created as one, so all these data members get storage, get some memory space on the memory. So let's explain it further. For example, now I'm going to create a second object. Currently we have just created one student of that class. We can create hundreds and thousands of the object. We can create n objects of the students. So let's go towards the second object. Now we are going to create a second student as2. Now this will be a different memory space. This has a different location, and the S2 will have a separate storage, separate memory space for that. So for S2 I will also define a name, and the name is, for example, I am showing as a B over here. This is these are dummy data. And for S2 I will also have a roll number, and I think the roll number variable was roll number, and I assign some data to that roll number too. For example, BS002, and this was s2. I forget to write the 2 over here. In the same way, I will need s2 to provide the semester data, semester, and to that semester I'm going to provide some data. For example, this is a second semester, so our second object is also created. We also need to call its function. So s2, against the s2 object I'm going to call the show function. Yes, I have called the show function too. So s1 object will work for all that particular for the student s1, the first instant, and that will work for the second instant. So let's run it and check its behavior, how it works. So now you can see that it is exactly displaying for the first student data, it is also displaying for the second student data. And if you go ahead, you can create a number of objects over here and they will display the same data for different objects. So let's revise the thing what we covered in that. We covered actually that what are the classes and what are the objects, and the important thing which we need to discuss over here, that uh, uh, classes, if we compare it with the real world, that classes where if we compare it with the real world, that we can say that classes actually are designed for any particular object. As you can see that for the university application, we decided the number of objects, the number of entity as a part of that program. But before going to directly store data in it, what we do, we first create a design for that. And why we create a design for that, uh, we want to make it sure that what type of data is it getting and what type of function will will it perform. And this will be a unique design. Later on, this design will not be changed, the data will be got according to that design, the data will perform according to this design exactly when the design is prepared and after that the house is made. So you can compare accordingly, and you can say that the class is actually a design. This is a template to store the object's data. An object is a real world entity. Object is a one instant, object is a one row. As you can see over here, that this is the student one, this is the student one data, this is the first row, this is the one and the first entity of that class, this is the second entity of that class, this is the third entity of that class. And if there is 100 student in the class, there will be 100 entities. So how do we code that? Here you can see that we this is our class, and to code that we have used the class keyword, and after the class keyword we use the class name, and in that this is the student, and in that student we have some data members, for example name, roll number, and semester. And we also need some function over here, and currently I just wrote only one function for that, and we are using that function to display the data. Then we go towards the main, because the compiler only look into the main, and in the main we created one object, for example s1, and to that s1 I have assigned all the data members with some data, and after that I called its show function. I'm doing the same for s2. And this is I think enough for today, and hopefully you have understood what is the class, what is the object, and how it works. Thank you so much.